right. Welcome back to Jumpstart Mondays with the VIP Connections Group, powered by La Rosa Realty. And thank you guys for joining. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Today, we're going to be doing part 2 of the listing presentation. If you didn't see part 1, it is recorded on the YouTube channel. I will post it in the WhatsApp chat for those of you who are part of it. And if not, just look us up on YouTube and that'll be great. All right. Thank you so much, Emalis, for that information. That sounds great. All right. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to start sharing my screen and we're going to do part 2 of this listing presentation. And I just want to make sure that I got everybody in.
You want to put me as a co, I can let everybody else?
Yes, please. Let me make you co-host. There we go. Thank you very much. All right. All right. Well, first of all, I want to know where everybody is coming in from. What state, what city. If you can just put that in the chat, I'd love to see where everyone is coming from while I share my screen. Share. Oops, there's my alarm telling me get on this Zoom call here. Okay, let me just turn that off. Okay, so let me hit present. And just give me a hands up if you see my presentation or a little heart or some reaction. That would be great. Thank you so much. All right, beautiful Miami. We got La Rosa Realty, Texas in the house, Miami in the house, Georgia in the house, Winter Haven. Awesome. Welcome. I love it. I love that we see people from all over. So thank you again so much for joining us. Today, we're going to do part 2 of the listing presentation. And like I mentioned before, for those of you who just joined, you can find part 1 of this presentation on our YouTube channel. All right, so we're going to go right into it because I want to make sure that you guys are on time. So the quote for today is the highest levels of success don't come from more grinding. They come from more alignment, okay? And so the takeaway is hustle is important, but direction matters more. Work that aligns with your values and strengths leads to better results. So use it. When your to-do list feels endless, pause and ask, does this move me closer to what I actually want? Okay. And if anyone has any comments about that, how they feel about that, please go ahead and share. But I believe that is true. It doesn't come from more grinding. And do excuse the noise in the background. I have somebody power washing. But it's not about the grinding. It's about creating that alignment, creating that direction, having that system, doing all the things that you guys need in order to move over to the next level. Okay, so that's a powerful thing, a powerful quote. And today I'm actually going to skip this because I actually didn't have time to get that done. So I'm just going to go straight into market reports. As of July 2025, new single family homes, and this is nationwide, okay? Single family home sales dipped 0.06 from June, landing at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 652,000 units, down 8.2% year over year. And that's by Kinoko Real Estate Routers. The median sales price for new homes fell to $403,000, about 5.9% lower than July of 2024, and just below the June figure of 407,200 that was done by census.gov. And inventory of new homes remains high with 499,000 units available, translating to 9.2 months of supply. So a significant increase from the previous year. So there is supply. Now we just have to find some buyers.
And piggybacking with that, Teresa, loan mortgage application actually went up 7% nationwide in the month of July. And also compared to the year before, they're up 7%. So that's a good positive thing.
Yes. And then I'm just going to share a little bit about Puerto Rico. Guys, if you have any investors, Puerto Rico is the top increase in sales value, basically in equity, equity building and building and building year after year and after year. I mean, the increases are crazy. And actually, it's actually one of the fastest, Puerto Rico is the fastest increase in home sales and home prices in basically the whole nation. So we are up there with, with the top of the top, the cream of the crop. So if you have investors who want to invest in Puerto Rico, send them my way because this is a great investment. Investing in Puerto Rico, again, the increases in value of homes year after year is crazy. Like there has been such an increase in equity. This past year alone, it was like some ridiculous amount, like almost 20% increase in equity in a home that was bought a year ago. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, so I just wanted to share that little nugget there, but we're gonna go ahead and keep moving. All right, so I want to recap last session that we had. We talked about, the things that you need to do pre-listing. Okay, pre-listing meaning pre-listing presentation. The things that you need to do, the phone call you need to make, the questions you need to ask, before you actually go on your listing presentation, because it's super important that you're prepared when you knock on that door and you sit down in front of the client. And the only way to do that is to ask pertinent questions at that phone call, at that initial interview with the seller. So we talked about, why are they selling? Are they relocating? Are they upgrading? Are they downgrading? What's left on their mortgage? How much do they want to walk away with? So just asking pertinent questions before you get in front of them, because you're going to recap what you spoke on the phone when you get in front of them at the listing appointment. So today is really more talking about what happens. You got through the phone call, you have the listing appointment. Now you're going to the home to actually do the presentation. And that's what we're going to touch on today. Does anybody have any questions from our last class, whoever was on our last class? Okay. If you do, just plug them in. Yemalis is watching the chat, and I want to make sure that we answer your questions, okay? So as we discussed last week, again, recap, making sure that you have a CMA, property data sheets, disclosure forms, listing contracts, marketing materials, your business cards, your testimonials and reviews, your agent bio, all the stuff that you need to have together in your listing presentation when you go to the house, okay? But now, what do you do once you're there? And that's what we're going to discuss today. So I have a 14-step listing checklist, okay? So first of all, once I get to that door, the first thing I want to do is be on time, okay? There's nothing worse than being late for a listing appointment when you're trying to get the listing. That does not leave a very good reputation for you, right? If you're showing up late for your own listing appointment, an appointment that you made with the client. So showing on time, actually showing on, not even on time, be there 15 minutes early. Why do you need to be there 15 minutes earlier? Can anybody share with me why they would think they would need to be there 15 minutes earlier? And you guys can either put it in chat or just unmute yourself. Why should you be there 15 minutes early? For anyone who's been on a listing presentation.
You are welcome to unmute. This is your call.
Yep. And I want to make sure that you guys are, engaging, because this, again, did you know that when you engage in a presentation or a class, you retain a whole lot more? So the more engagement, the more you retain. Okay. So ask away. Why should we be on time? Let's see. Is anybody in the chat here?
Maricruz said, if you're on time, you're late.
That is correct, Maricruz. Absolutely. If you're on time, you're late. But why should we get there early is my question. Why is it important for us to get there early? Nobody? All right.
It shows volunteer people.
It shows punctuation. It shows punctuation. It shows how serious and how productive you are, and it shows your character of you know, how you're going to be handling business moving forward. You're on time, you're prepared. I mean, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. And I have on the chat, check the property, right? You want to check the property to check the house for smells, turn on the AC lights. Okay, well, that's usually if you're going to go show the house. What
Know
we're
it.
talking
Mhm.
about, yeah, we're talking about going to a listing presentation and why you should be there early. Accountability. Okay, Maricruz, accountability. All right. So one of the reasons why you need to be there 15 minutes early. First of all, you want to look around the outside of the house. You want to look around the neighborhood. You want to take a picture of the front of the house before you knock on the door. You want to check the curb appeal. You want to take mental notes. You want to maybe look at the roof. You know, just show up a little earlier so you can do a little look on the outside of the house, okay, before you knock on the door. All right, so
And
now
also, Teresa, just to add to what your statement, driving around early, you can actually identify things that are new development, things that are happening, opportunities for marketing, right? Like, hey, there's a new park being built, there's, rehabilitation here, there's, all of this stuff that you can use in your language for marketing this property, and you can use it for conversation with your sellers, right? So you
absolutely.
want to make sure that you notice things. Of course, you want to make sure that your house that you're going to be doing the appointment with is not going to be either the ugly duckly or the best house in the neighborhood, because all that leads to a conversation with the seller, because all that will affect your marketing strategies. Okay. So you
Yes,
want to make sure that you do that.
absolutely, absolutely. It's really just to gather information. That's why you want to be early. You want to gather information about the house, take a picture of the front of the house so you have the picture of the front of the house. Why do you want the picture of the front of the house? Who can tell me why I would want the picture of the front of the house before I go into the listing presentation? Nobody? All right, so the reason I want the picture of the front of the house is because when I get that listing agreement, now I can hurry up and go and start putting it on the MLS, because all you need is the house, the picture of the front of the house, right, to list the property. So I want to have at least that one picture that I need in order for me to post it on the MLS, even if I have to wait 1 or 2 more days to post the rest of the pictures. But I want to at least have that one picture of the front of the house. The other thing too is I want to look at curb appeal. I want to remember when I go home, I want to be able to look at the front of the house and see if there was anything that caught my eye that maybe I forgot to put in my notes. Okay. So just have a picture of the front of the house, but also you want to make sure that you're there early to show that you're responsible, that you keep your word, that you're, always there on time, right? Because imagine if you show up late for your first appointment, and now that just, for me, at least personally, talks a lot about my integrity. It talks a lot about the person I am, and that shows a lot to the seller. Okay, so make sure you show up on time, and on time means about 15 minutes early. Okay, you're going to knock on the door or ring the doorbell and then stand back. Why do we stand back? I know a few of you must know this already. Why do we stand back once we ring the doorbell?
So we don't look intimidated.
So you don't look intimidating. Okay, good going. That's perfect. What else? Why do we stand back once we ring the doorbell or knock on the door? All right, so one of the things that you don't get hit by the door. That too. That's perfect. You definitely don't want to get hit by the door. But really, one of the reasons that I like to stand back is because remember that, if you're standing right in front of the door, most people have that little, that little peephole where they look through the peephole to see who it is. And you know that most of us, we don't just answer the door. We want to see who's at the door. And they can't really see me if I'm standing right in front of the door. And you're right, I don't want to get hit by the door either, but I want to make sure that they see me so that they feel comfortable, that they see me, with my little book, so that they know I'm the listing agent. And, and obviously I'm pretty sure that at this point, I've already sent them a picture of myself or done some sort of, video conference with them, so they know who I am. But Again, that's what I would stand back, okay? Next, handshake, right? You want to introduce yourself. Ask them if they require shoe removal, right? Because some people don't like, they have carpeting, they don't want you walking in with their shoes. So out of respect, I normally will ask them if, you know, is it okay to walk in with shoes, or would you like me to take my shoes off? Okay. Because again, a lot of people are very, very finicky about that, about making sure that your shoes are removed. And so, you know, that's something that I like to ask, okay, just out of respect. And where would they like you to set up, right? I want to ask permission. You know, Mr. Seller, where would you like me to set up my computer so, you know, we can do the presentation? What would be a comfortable place for you, right? Usually it's the kitchen table, maybe the kitchen countertop. You know, most of the time it's around that, right? Because you're going to have your presentation on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever it is, right? So you want to make sure that you can go and set up, all right, and get your presentation ready. Now, ask for a tour of the house. Why do we need a tour of the house? Who can tell me why you need a tour of the house? Why would I want to tour the house before I sit down and do a presentation? Come on, people, you're quiet. You know, and remember, no answer is a wrong answer. There's no wrong answer here. Okay, just, you know, just so that you know, there's no wrong answer.
Just
Eliana,
looking.
I think
See the
it's unmuted.
condition for the house.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who was first? I'm not sure who was first.
Eliana, I think.
Okay.
To see the condition for the house.
Okay, to see the condition of the house, okay, to ask questions about it in the chat, to see the condition, the improvements. If there's anything that needs to fix before you list, perfect. We need to know more about the house. Perfect, exactly that. We need to know more about the house. We need to ask questions. We need a tour. And, you know, we want to take a notepad with us. Don't just do a tour and not have a notepad with you. Okay, because you're going to ask questions and you want to make sure you're not going to remember everything that you spoke of when you get back and you're doing the listing, right? Or you're filling out the paperwork or whatever it is you're doing. You're not going to remember all that. So it makes you look more professional when you actually have a notepad with you. Okay, and now you're taking notes of the things that are going on. Now, can someone tell me what, you know, as you're getting the tour of the house and they're telling you all the great things about the house and, you know, and they're telling you, oh, you know, yeah, I just put in the roof 2 years ago, you know, all this, you know, that we just updated the kitchen. But what are key things that you would ask in case they didn't share that information with you? What are maybe even 2 things that you would need to know that are super important to a buyer about the house? Just 2. If you were a buyer, what would be your 2 questions? Look at the roof. Okay, that's perfect. What's another one? Are there any liens on the house? Okay, that's a perfect question. Yes. Any others? All right. Year of construction. Good, good. Thank you, Sheila. Absolutely. So those are all things that you're going to ask. Yes, I'm sorry. Someone was about to say something. Okay, how much you own the property? Yes. How old is the AC? Good. Awesome, awesome. Good. You guys are on it. I love it. Yes. If they don't share with you how old the AC is, how old the roof is, you know, all those things, right? How old the pool pump, if there's a pool pump, when was the last time they resurfaced the pool? You know, there's certain things that you as a real estate agent are going to need in order to not only, you know, list the property correctly, right? But those are questions that buyer's agents are going to ask or buyers are going to ask, and you don't want to seem like you're not prepared. You don't know what's going on with the house. You don't want to have to call the owner after you've listed the house. Oh, Mr. Owner, I forgot to ask you, how old is the AC? Right? That's not going to make you look very professional. If you get that information up front, you're going to be prepared for all the questions when you do open houses, when you are, you know, talking to a listing agent and they have questions because the buyer's going to have these questions. So yes, and thank you, Sheila. I will open the water pipe to see if the water pressure is good. Good job. Any important upgrades? Perfect. Any any recent upgrades? Another question that I always ask, have you had any insurance claims that has still not been paid out? Okay, especially in the state of Florida, maybe even Texas, right, where there's a lot of hurricanes and people, file claims on water damage and roof damage and all this other stuff, right? So I also like to ask how, if there's any recent insurance claims on the house, or if there were any insurance claims on the house. Okay, that's really important to know, because I don't know about you, but in Florida, a lot of people file insurance claims, but they don't do the repairs. Okay, they get the insurance money and they don't do the repairs, right? And that can hinder the sale of the property, because here in Florida, when you go to buy a house, obviously you have to get homeowners insurance. When the homeowner goes to apply for insurance, they're going to do a background check on any claims related to that house. And if there was a claim, let's say for a roof, right? For a new roof, right? Somebody made a claim for a new roof, but then when they ask you how old is the roof, you say from 1980, and they filed a claim for a new roof, that's going to create a problem for insurability, okay? Because that's someone who, again, took the money and ran and didn't do the fixing. So that's a really important question that I always ask, especially in, anywhere where there's hurricanes or anything of that nature. I always ask if there's any recent claims filed with their insurance company on the house, okay? Or any open claims that are still pending, okay? Yes, also ask who are the owners. Yes. Any important upgrades? Yes, absolutely. Okay. So now you're touring the property, right? You're taking your notes, you're putting everything in writing, you're taking those notes. Now, I don't, if you see something negative, let's say, the kitchen's not beautiful, maybe the bathrooms really need some upgrading, maybe the house smells, whatever it is, you don't want to put that in your notes, because obviously, you're going to kind of go over the positive with the seller, not so much with the negative, not before you get that listing appointment. Okay. Not listing contract. Once you have it listed, then you can go back and say, okay, Mr. Seller, these are some of the things that I noticed that we should probably address before we put it on the market. Okay. But that's definitely something that I want to do. I want to put in all the positives, right? Ask all those questions so that you're prepared, okay? And obviously take a notepad with you. Never go to a listing presentation without a notepad to take some notes, okay? Now
So Teresa, I'm going to be the devil advocate on that one, because I do share my negatives.
Okay.
So when I do my walkthrough in the property, I actually do like a column positive or negative for the rooms that I'm walking. And not only that, I actually take notes of things that I think the seller should be aware to basically create a neutral environment for the property, right? So let's say that they're a religious family, right? So if I see a lot of religious, items in display, right? I make notes on those things. If I see something too ethnic, I also make notes of this thing. Of course, and the reason why I do this is because, to me, they get to understand that this is going to be now a neutral zone for any type of buyer that is interested in this property. And they want to protect their personal items, right? From when they're marketing that property. So if they have pictures of the family on display, pictures of their kids on display, things that are, an heirloom of the family, things like that of value, I make notes, and then it's part of my conversation, because it's also allow me to connect in a different level with the seller, because sometimes agents do not share these things with the seller, and then it will separate yourself from the rest of the pack. Okay. The other thing that you want to take notes, and when I say negative, I don't say, oh my God, this is an ugly kitchen, or this is an ugly bathroom, or the colors. No. It's about things that I think might be a health and hazard issue, that I know might be an issue for financing, that I know is going to be an issue, right, for insurability, like Teresa said. And that's how I address it. Not the fact that, oh my God, your tile is from the 1920s, go ahead and change it. It's all about, hey, listen, I noticed that in the bathroom, there's like mold, right? Because I'm not an inspector, so I need to be very careful with the language that I use. But I see black little things on the roofs, and I want to make sure that they know that they're there, and that will translate into a possible discount if we don't find out what's going on over there. What is it, right? And they need to know, or maybe they know and they need to share, right? So we can address it together. So I do take that time to really understand their property, have different conversations, positive and negative, and then of course, once the flow of the conversation moves into the possible listing signing agreement, then we work on a strategy of marketing. Because maybe they have funds to repair, but maybe I'm stuck with a seller that doesn't have a cent to do anything on their property, and I need to approach the market in a different way. Okay. The other comment that I'm going to share here is that be prepared for a seller to offer you food, water, something to drink. And how are you going to be reacting to that? Because that will connect you to your seller. And again, the ethnicity plays a big role, right? There's certain cultures that feel really proud on sharing what they have in their kitchens. And you want to be open to do that. If you are open to do that, just make sure that you eat it or you drink it, people. Once you say yes, go ahead and eat it and drink it. Do not disrespect that welcome, right? That is coming from that seller. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Yemalis. And yes, and those are all things obviously that we were going to speak about too, but she bit me to the punchline, so that's great. But what I really want to do is, I don't like I don't like to present. I write those things down, or I take a mental note of all those things as I'm walking through the house. But I really want to focus on the positive things of their home, right? I want to, because for all of us, it doesn't matter the condition we feel the house is in. Most of the time, sellers think their house is the best house on the market, right? They think that they have the best house, they have the best kitchen, they have the best pool, even if it doesn't, look that hot, right? But they think so. So we have to respect that, and we have to honor that, right? Compliment on some of the conditions of their home, point out the positives, right? And then you come around, right? Once you're sitting down, okay, Mrs. Smith, I made some notes when I went through, the room upstairs, your master bedroom, the bathroom had a little mold, that I took some notes on, and I want to make sure that we address these things, okay, before we list the property. And we're going to talk about all the things that obviously they do need to take into account, right? And repair, or check, or maybe improve, or whatever the case may be. We're going to talk about all that, but we want to make sure that we're talking about, complimenting the condition of their home, point out all the positives, like I said, because I think that that's important, because again, every seller thinks their house is the best house on the market, and we don't want to disagree. But everything Yemali said about, making sure that we're pointing out, you have to look at the roof, right? Look, while you're walking around, look at the roof, because normally you can see if there was a repair on the roof, if there was a leak in the roof, right? You can tell by the texture of the ceiling. You can tell if there's any stains. Those are all things that you want to make sure that you're writing down. Even if you have to get up again, and they're like, oh, I didn't see that, sure, when we're done with this presentation, we'll go ahead and do another quick tour, and I can point out those things that really need to get repaired, once we list this property, okay? But I want to make sure that they sign that contract and they don't get insulted by the things that I'm pointing out, or the negatives I'm pointing out, even though those are things I am going to point out no matter what. But I like to kind of get that listing presentation, or that listing contract signed. And then now I can go into, these are some of the things that I think are going to affect the price of your home as we're listing it, or the marketing of your home, right? Because it's really more about the marketing, not necessarily the price. But it's, in order for us to market the property, these are the same things I'm going to recommend that you take care of before we, come back and take some professional photos, and before, inspection comes, or before you get an offer, so yeah. And yes, ethnicity is really important. There's a lot of cultures that do offer you food, that do offer you drinks, and they're insulted if you don't, if you don't take anything to drink or take anything to eat. So you have to know who your audience is and who those sellers are, and do a little research. I mean, you can do research on customs, if you have an Indian family, okay, what are, Indian customs, so that way you're prepared, right? You're a little bit more prepared when you go into these homes, okay? All right, so, oops, sorry, I think I left I left number 8 out, sorry about that. Do the listing presentation, and your value proposition, right? So before you start doing your listing presentation, which really your listing presentation is just who you are, what you bring to the table, what your value is, right? It's all about talking about who you are as a person, who you are as an agent, what you can bring to the table, how you can get their home sold, right? So it's just a presentation of who you are and what you can do for them, right? And then you're going to pull out, the CMA, explain the data in the CMA, how many actives, how many sold, how many pending, what the homes are selling for, and obviously you want to select homes that best match their homes, right? I'm not going to pick a house that doesn't match their house. That's why you can't really, when people ask me to do a CMA for them, or, oh, I want to know how much my property is worth. I can't, I want to go see that property because they could be telling me it's an excellent condition based on what they believe is excellent condition, right? Because what they believe and what is actual could be different. So for me to be, to be able to compare apples to apples, right? I need to see the house, and I need to be there in the house and do a quick tour of the house and just, because I can't just create a CMA and, just because they told me it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool, right? I need to see a little bit of the condition of the house, because if the condition, if I see 3 homes that the condition of the house is, let's say 2020, right? 2020 standards, but this house, same neighborhood, same number of bedrooms, same, pool, but they haven't remodeled it since 1960. I can't compare a 1960 home to a 2020 home, right? Even though it's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. So I like to go look at the house first, before I do an FCMA for anyone, because I want to be able to compare apples to apples. So even though I pull out a CMA, I always explain that to the client. If I can get a foot in to do a quick tour of the house before I do a CMA, so I can get myself together, I would rather do that, right? Sometimes you won't get that opportunity. Sometimes you're just going to kind of, have to do it based on, whatever's on the market. And then now when you look at the house, right, because you're going to have pictures of the comps, now you can say, okay, Mrs. Smith, well, this is the condition of this house, right? And this is the condition of your house. Okay. And that might not be the same. So, sometimes those CMAs are not the best idea, because again, they're gonna have information that might not be comparing apples to apples, okay? Now you're going to explain the data, like I said, how many actives, how many sold, how many pending. You're going to select the homes that best, match their home. And you're going to ask the question, right? Right before you finish, once you finish with the data, you're going to ask them the question, based on the information I just shared, and the prices landing between XYZ to XYZ, where do you feel we should list your home based on the current sales? And let them give you a figure, right? Because they might have, they might be thinking, oh, I want $500,000 for my house. And then you go and you look at the house and you look at the comps, and the comps are at 375 or 400,000, and they want 500,000. But, they're basing it based on Zillow, right? Or they're basing it based on some information that they got who knows where on the internet. So now you have to bring them down to earth, right? That's why you want to ask the question, because if I'm sharing comparables that are in, 400,000, and they're the same houses as theirs, and they're in their mind are thinking 500,000, the only way I'm going to bring them back down to earth is sharing the information so that they can see, okay, well, houses sold between 350 and 400,000. I'm thinking, it's worth 500,000. So now you want to ask them, based on the current sales, right? The sold properties, and the listed properties, because the list is also say a little bit, right? Or the ones that are pending, how much do you think we should list this property for? And then let them be able to answer that question for you. And then you go back to those questions, right? If they're saying, oh, well, I thought it was going to be like 500,000, but based on what you're showing me here, yeah, I should probably list it at 420 maybe, or 400, right? So now you have a little bit more conversation to go off, okay? And I'm just going to read Yamali's thing here. Correct the conversation, the finding get discussed at the table, not while you are walking. Correct. Yes, it gets discussed at the table, not while you're walking. And that's why you want to take a notepad so you can start, taking those notes, and then you can discuss it. In the market, pay attention on days on the market and set the correct expectation with the seller. Yes, that's really important as well, which we discussed, I think, not too long on the training, is that look at how long the properties have been on the market, the ones that have sold. Because if they tell you, oh, I need to be in Georgia, in 30 days, I need to sell this house in 30 days, and you look at the days on market for everything that's sold in their neighborhood is 120 days, you need to be realistic with them and tell them, Mr. Seller, I know you want to get your house sold in 30 days, but this is the average days on market for the homes in your neighborhood. So we just need to make sure that you understand that this might not sell in 30 days like you would like it to sell in 30 days, because this is how many days it's been on the market. So, those are things that you also have to be very realistic with the sellers. And I want somebody to share here who has been here on a listing presentation and has been successful at getting the listing. You can unmute. And what did you do where you felt, I got the listing because I was prepared and I had this? And it can't be a friend or family. Has to be someone where you're like, yes, I did a presentation and I got it. Abe, I know you've gotten some listing presentations or some listings. What do you do with your listing presentation?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was most likely is most a family member. So I had one right now I'm working on. So I'm pretty much doing the same thing you're telling right now. Just like inspecting the home and ask questions. So like today I went over there to just like meet the clients and talk to them, but nothing fancy, nothing yet guaranteed. But I just met them today and just get to know them, their feelings, stuff like that. But so far I don't go any further than that.
Okay, so you went and did sort of like a pre-listing type of present, just get to know you, asking questions about it. And now you
It,
have to go and do the real presentation.
exactly. Not no contract sign, anything like that. They just reached out to me the other day. And I went today to just talk to them and then look at the house, ask questions if I'm the right realtor to work with. So it seemed like I'm gonna get it, but never know. But I'm glad that I came to that class and then listened to some of these things that I can use them next time. I'm gonna meet them on Thursday and then see how I can get that listing. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Now, Marie Cruz just said she also brings an Alta, or is it an Alta or is it a net sheet? Marie Cruz, I know that you can't check because but if you can type it in, is it an Alta that you take, or you take a net sheet? A net sheet, saying more or less what they're going to walk away with depending on the price that they sell it. Yes, a net sheet. Okay, yes, a net sheet is very helpful. Another tool that helped me get the listing is having my partners ready, CPA, accountant, contractors, insurance. Yes, yes. Being a resource. You have to be a resource to your clients. Okay. You have to be prepared to like you said, like Yamali said, if there's things that need to be done around the house, have some recommendations. Hey, if you need a pool guy, here's a pool guy that I used in the past to resurface the pools. He's amazing. Or, hey, you need to replace these windows. Here's someone who does windows. Be prepared with, everyone, like the accountant, having a CPA, having a title escrow, attorneys. Yes, all of that, right? We want to make sure that we're prepared and we become a resource. Okay. And then Sheila says, I got the listing. I have active for 3 months. I allow to another realtor to do an open house. And soon as the expiration of the listing, she knocked the door and she get the listing and sell it. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Sheila. All right. So, which is not, that wasn't very ethical of her, but you know, it is what it is. That wasn't a very ethical thing for her to do. But why did you only list it for 3 months? Was it because that's what they wanted, a 3-month listing? Because that's another thing, guys. We need to make sure that we understand that in today's market, 3 months might not be enough time for you to sell a house. Okay, especially when the national average is about 120 days. Okay. They only wanted 3 months again. And so, you know, let's talk a little bit about objections. What are the objections that you're getting when you're at the table? What are the objections you're getting? Time, right? How long they want to list it for? What's another objection? Commission, I'm sure, right? Commission, once you talk about commission. But you know, one of the things that I wanted to share, and where did I put it? Did I put it in here? Let me see if it was in my presentation. Let's see. Nope, I forgot. I didn't put it in there. But there was a quote that says that, you know, the price doesn't mean anything if they're not going to focus on price when you're creating value, right? Something similar to that. So you have to create value, right? When you're going to your listing presentation, you have to create value. You have to have a good value proposition of who you are, what you bring to the table, and why you're different, right? From every other realtor. Because, you know, they're just gonna assume you're just another realtor that just opens doors, right? So you have to have a good value proposition, because when you present value, it's hard to argue price. Okay, it's hard to argue commission when you're creating value. Okay, so remember that. Now, the other thing is body language. What's your body language telling the seller? Right? Are you showing up in jeans and your t-shirt with your logo? Are you showing up the part? Are you dressed the part? Are you just showing up in flip-flops and shorts? Are, you know, I don't know, because I've seen people showing properties with flip-flops and shorts, and I'm not talking here in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, it's kind of hot. But, you know, when you're with a client, how are you presenting yourself, right? What's your body language telling the seller? Are you like, you know, walking slow, kind of like sluggish? Are you positive? Are you standing up straight? Are you sitting down straight? Are you, you know, leaning towards them when you're speaking to them? You know, what is your body language telling the seller, right? And that's something that you should probably, you know, do a little homework on, right? And talk and learn a little bit about body language, and also reading body language. Okay? Because you can tell when you're having a conversation with someone if they're engaged or not engaged, or if you already lost them. Okay? You also have to know what type of personality is this seller, right? And you determine that usually on the first phone call. Is this the type of seller that wants details, or is this the type of seller, just tell me how much it's going to cost me and when can we get it sold, right? Because if I go to a listing presentation and I know that that seller's personality is more like, give me the details, that's all I want to know, right? All I want to know is how much you're going to charge me and how soon you can get my house sold. I don't want to know about the comps. I don't care about all the data. I don't care about the graphs. I don't care about your marketing strategy. I don't care about any of that. How much are you going to charge me and how soon do you think you can sell my house? Right? If I know that the client is that type of client, why would I go to a listing presentation and start sharing data and sit there and you know, they're going to be looking at you like, you know, and body language says a lot. So look at the person's body language, because if you're losing them, you need to stop, right? You have to re-engage them right away, right? So I usually like to, when I go to my listing presentations, if I don't, let's put it this way, if I don't get that first conversation with them where I can really determine what type of personality, if they're like, like me, just tell me what it is. I don't want to hear the details. I could care less about the details. There's two things I'm interested in. How much you're going to charge me and how fast are you going to sell my house, right? But if I'm that analytical personality where I need to know, I want to know what you're going to do for my marketing. I want to know the details of the comps. How did you come to that conclusion? If you have that type of personality client, or even if, because you might be that personality, you might be that one that likes to do the full presentation because you like graphs and you like all this stuff, right? So you're doing all these things. And then you realize that, you're losing them because you're looking at their body language and they're like looking to the side, looking up, let me look this way. They're not looking at you engaged, right? When someone is interested in what you have to say, they're gonna kind of lean forward and they're gonna be listening to you. They're gonna be looking at you, right? And they're gonna be paying attention. So your body language is just as important as their body language, right? So you have to make sure that you learn to read body language because that's really important because if I'm that type of personality where all I just want to know is the price and how much you're going to charge me and how long you're going to sell it, and you start giving me a full presentation, you're going to lose me. You're going to lose me. I'm not going to be engaged. And I'm going to be like, oh my God, this girl's going to drive me crazy. I cannot. Okay. So learning that personality is really important and reading the body language in the room. Okay. When I start seeing someone who is, and one of the questions I would ask is, okay, Mr. Seller, I have a full presentation, but I like to ask, do you want to see the short version of my presentation? Or are you the type of person that really needs to know all the details? Because if you do, I have a great presentation for you. But if you're like the type of presentation like me, that I just want, get to the point, I'll just get straight to the point. And they'll usually tell you, oh no, Teresa, just get to the point. No, I want to know the details. What exactly are you doing? And now I'm prepared for both. Okay. Am I going to have a really short conversation straight to the point, or am I going to have a long conversation, and very long-winded? Okay. So what's your body language telling the seller, but also what's your seller's body language telling you? Are you dressed the part? Right? That's really important. Are you also following up? Right? Maybe you didn't get them to sign that listing contract that day, because maybe they're interviewing, a couple other agents. Are you following up, or are you just giving up because, that you didn't get the contract that day? Follow up. You have to follow up right away, right? As soon as you leave the house, you can, in your car, I would be sending them a text message. Thank you so much for allowing me time to spend with you today. Whatever it is, send them a nice little text message. It was great meeting you. Whatever it is, right? Send them a little follow-up text, telling them thank you so much. Obviously, you're going to tell them that before you leave, but you want to also follow up with a text, okay? But then also the next day, follow up. Don't wait for them to interview 6 more agents, right? Keep following up. And then Imali says, you get to understand who is the decision maker in the household, regardless of who is in title or mortgage. Correct. That's the other thing. Thank you so much, Imali. Who is the decision maker, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you have the seller and it's the husband, right, who's on title, but the wife is the one that calls the shots. You want to make sure you're there. So you want to ask that question, when you're going to do this presentation, are everyone who's going to make a decision on selling this house going to be available for the presentation, right? Because I don't want to do a presentation for one of the sellers and then, it's a third party now trying to explain it to the wife who's really the decision maker, right? You want to have whoever's going to be involved in the sale of the property, you want to have both. Yes, Abe.
Abe.
Oh yeah, I was just want to say earlier, when you're talking about the value last week, and I was just helping somebody find a lawyer regarding something else, and I was helping them like doing something different for them. So, and then I also have my business also, and I was helping them, with different stuff. So they refer me two of their friends, and they say in December they're on the market to buy a house, and they're gonna refer that to me. So that's the value. I wasn't talking about real estate about them. It was like something else. But the way I present myself and I help them, with different stuff, they
Solve a
already
problem.
refer me to two of their friends, and then December they're gonna be in the market to buy a house. So that's what the value. I just wanted to say how important is it?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Aben. So important. Your value is super important. When you become a resource to your prospects and your clients, they will never forget that, right? Make sure that you're always a resource to them. Like he said, he was doing something, nothing to do with real estate, but he was helping them with something, and now he's got a couple leads. And hey, did you ask them for the referrals?
No, I did not ask them, and I didn't ask him about the referral. He said, "Yo, I like the way you work," and I was telling him about my real estate business. And he said, "You know what? I have two friends that are looking for, and I have two friends in the market right now looking for a home. So I would definitely pass your information to them." And then the next day, I got a call from them. They say, "Hey, I got a referral by such and such." And then after you were good with him, so we would like to explore the market. So right now, I'm working with them and to see what we have.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Malis, I think you were gonna say
Yeah,
something.
no, I want to share a story here because my first over $1 million listing that I ever got was exactly because of a resource and not necessarily by my presentation, because I was competing with 7 other agents. And what separated me that day, and I'm certain, and then after we closed, I asked them. They said it's the fact that so this was a sale or a listing because of a death in the family, right? So here are the children of the deceased trying to list the property and working on all that. So when I did my presentation as a listing candidate, right, I went through all the basically the A to C, wonderful, beautiful presentation. But then after I was done, they start asking me about tax information, right? So guess what? We can't answer, even if you know the answer, you cannot answer those questions. So what I did is I said, you know what? I cannot answer you this, but I'm certain that my partner, such and such, will go ahead and give you that response. And I immediately took my phone and I blip, blip, blip on that presentation and I dial. I connected with my CPA. I handed my phone. They had 2 minutes conversation. From that conversation, they made an appointment, and I was signing my listing appointment 20 minutes after. My listing agreement 20 minutes after. And that was the reason why I separated myself, because I became an immediate resources. And for them, at that moment, taxes was the key of the sale, because they had no idea what the impact of that was going to be with all the equity that the mom had available in the state of California. So that's what I mean. You need to bring your team to that table. And when I say a team, I'm not expecting you to have a team, but you do have a team. You have your lender, you have, people in law, people in construction, people basically in all the trades, and you get to make that list. And that is part of your listing presentation, people, because those are your team members, and your seller gets to know that, because you will connect them and you will refer them to the top of the top, right? Because that's who you work with, the top of the top, because that's the agent that you are. The other thing that I wanted to share is that I hate getting listings for leases. I hate leases myself. And what I have done very effectively lately is that when I go to the listing for lease, I actually research the property for a sale. So I do my own CMA and everything for listing. And I also have the information for leases. And I've been able to convert 2 listings that were supposed to be for leases into listings for sales, because I have literally even taken the seller and that appointment to see a property that just came on the market in the neighborhood that same day. So be creative and just not prepare yourself for what the seller is expecting, because you might bring a solution that they're not considering in the moment, and perhaps it's the best solution for them. So again, don't be shy of having that card here for you to be available. Just follow the cue of those conversations when you're at that table. Another thing is that when we are talking and letting you know that you are going around the property and making notes, It's not only for you to know about the property, you're going to know about your seller. You're going to make notes because guess what? If you find little knickknacks of golf, for example, you know that that seller likes golfing. That's a perfect little conversation to have there to get them into a connection, right? Maybe you know somebody in golf. Maybe you have a trainer that maybe they can connect. Who knows? I mean, whatever. You get to really observe how they live, what they like, what kind of family composition they have, because your intention is to connect beyond a, hey, the market says ABC, I can sell it for this is what I can do, because everybody's going to do the same thing. But they get to see you, they get to feel you, they get to really see, you know what, Jamal, as it is. She walks a walk, she talks a talk, and this is the woman that I want to work with. I don't care anything else. And that's literally what I'm going to make you sign the agreement. It's as simple as that.
Yes, yes, because you're really selling, you're not going there to get a listing. You're there, if you look at it like you're there to go make a friend, right? Because that's what you want. You want to build a relationship with that person, right? And again, whether they list the property with you or not at that moment, the other thing that I also like to work with is integrity, right? So I've had people who want to sell their house, and when I do the numbers, it makes no sense for them to sell their house, right? And I have to be transparent with them. And I'm, even if I want the listing and I know they're going to walk away with nothing or even walk away owing money, I have to be honest with them and tell them, look, you should not sell right now because you're going to be in the negative, or you're not going to make any money, right? Based on, I've had sellers that maybe bought 2 years ago and they haven't even recouped their closing costs, right? And they're trying to sell the house and they have no equity. So now, they're losing everything that they put into originally. And on top of that, they're really not going to get anything in closing because they don't have any equity. So they're actually losing money. And sometimes I have to have that hard conversation with, you know what, maybe we should wait unless it's urgent because you're relocating and you have to move, right? You have to sell. But if you don't have to sell, you just want to sell because you want an upgrade, right? Or you saw a new shiny toy and you want that new shiny toy. But if it doesn't make sense, you also have to be, work with ethics, right? And do what's best for your client, not what's best for you, what's best for your client. Because I've had situations like that where they'll turn around and say, oh my God, Teresa, thank you so much. I didn't even realize that, yeah, after I pay your commission and I do that, yeah, I'm not going to have any money. I mean, it makes no sense for me to sell right now. Yes, let's wait till next year till I build up some equity. And they've called me back, right? Because I do follow-ups, right? I'm not just gonna, forget about them, right? I have them in my CRM. I'm sending them little things, right? And I put them on a like a value, a home property value thing where it sends a CMA like every 3 or 4 months, right? Or quarterly, so that they know that I'm still there. And a lot of them have come back because I was transparent. I cared about them. I didn't try to just to sell their house and get paid a commission and knowing that was just not for them at that time, right? So just be the resource, be the person that they're gonna respect, right?
I have a question for the audience here, for all of you, familia. Any challenges that you basically see a constant in your presentations, like you're not able, that you feel like you're not able to either be successful at removing it, or maybe it's always something that originates in your presentations? Anybody that can share that perhaps we can discuss and support you? Or if you just sign a listing and you think it was a challenge, or maybe you were in competition, what do you think made you separate yourself and get that listing, that so everybody can benefit? Because it's already, what is it? But it's 6.
Yes.
Like
You are welcome
today,
to unmute.
like today on my first, it was my first conversation about listing. I mean, I listen watching videos, but it was my first one. I was kind of like know what to say, but when I get there, I kind of like but since that person speak the same language as me, that we speak Creole, so we can be able to like articulate pretty good. but that was my first presentation. I was kind of like, I would say if I want to grade myself, I would probably give myself a 6. But which is I'm learning. I don't feel bad about it. It's a learning process. But yeah, so I could do better, but I know the process. I know exactly what to say. But when I get there, I say, oh, should I might mess it up. I might not say the right thing. Then when I get there, I feel like everything get
So
out.
remember, Abe, it's all about them. This has nothing to do with you. So if you are
Yes.
just talking about yourself, you're not really doing a service to the
Connecting.
seller. So
Mhm.
your job here is to ask questions and get answers. And based on those answers, you're going to ask more questions. And then those answers are going to really take you into, oh, what kind of presentation am I going to really be bringing? Am I going to be too formal? Am I going to be just, one-on-one? Am I actually going to put a sheet of numbers? Maybe you don't even open your computer at all. 99 of our presentations, I've never really opened a computer ever.
Yep.
Because it doesn't go there. It's all about them. So once when you have that clarity, when you're entering to their home, that you're there to serve them, to really find out what can you bring to the table that really provides that solution that they're seeking. Even if the solution that they're seeking, it's not going to end up in a listing agreement. That is
Yes.
really going to make the difference, and it's going to keep you at peace because you're not going with an agenda. You're going with how can I be of service mentality, and people are going to read that, people are going to see that, and you immediately going to become a person of trust, and that's going to set the tone for the hour, the 20 minutes, the 2 hours, whatever it's going to take you to discuss with your seller.
Yeah. And we have to
Yeah.
remember that it's all about how you make people feel, right? People do business with you not for your talent, not because you're the best real estate agent. They do business with you because of how you make them feel, right? If they feel special, if they feel heard and understood, then more than likely they're going to want to work with you because they know that they can speak to you. They feel heard, they feel understood, they feel like you're bringing them value. So it's all about how people feel, right? And what you can bring to the table. All right, so define, just so we can close up, your growth tips, define your unique selling proposition, right? The same thing we talked about last time. You want to make sure that you practice your listing presentation with a friend or colleague or a significant other, right? Practice makes perfect. So go ahead and start, do some role playing. And then food for thought. Sellers don't just want a realtor, they want a strategist. Be the one who educates them on market data, staging, pricing, positioning. That's how you shift from an agent to a trusted advisor, right? You want to become a trusted advisor, someone that they can go to you because you are prepared, you're strategic about what you're going to do to sell their house, right? But you're also going to, make sure that they're listening to them, that you're sharing what right, and who you are. But also, again, like Yamali said, ask questions, right? Because it's all a conversation about them. It's not a conversation about you. Yes, you're going to present, who you are, and all that good stuff, what you can bring to the table, your value proposition. But at the end of the day, it's really just a conversation. And when they feel heard and respected, and that you're really listening to what they have to say, that you're honing in on I've had people cry at a listing presentation, okay? Because they've been able to release what's going on personally and why they have to sell and, what's going on. And I've had people cry at a listing presentation, right? And now you have to step back, now you have to be empathetic. You need to be, you have to be there. And I've gotten the listing, even with them crying, but it's an emotional thing too. We have to remember that most people have an emotional attachment to their home, especially when you walk through and they have, 20 years of pictures of their family, of the kids growing up. You see the soccer pictures and the football pictures and, the graduation pictures, and all you see, all this stuff of how much time they've been in that home. And now they're selling their home. It's usually a very emotional thing for that seller. And you have to be empathetic to that emotion, to what they're going through, and not just think it's a listing, I'm just trying to get a listing. I'm just trying to get a listing. You know, be empathetic to what's going on. And that's why going through the house and noticing all those little details, like Yamali said, about, you know, the pictures, if they're golfers, if they have kids, if they have grandkids, if they're soccer moms, if they're, you know, that's all super important for us to know, because again, there's an emotional attachment normally with a home, and that's how you can tell, right? If they have a lot of pictures and they have, you know, a lot of family things, they have their kids' trophies all over the place, you know, that's all an emotional attachment to that home, and you have to treat it with just as much respect. Okay. All right, so I think Emily says, and you do not have to have all the answers. It's okay. You can use the script below. Okay, so she put some scripts. Make sure you copy that script there. I wanted to check in to see how everything is going, and if there's anything you'd like to chat about, if there's anything on your mind or anything I can assist you with, feel free to let me know. There you go. Super simple, right? Super simple. It's being a resource.
Carmen, do you have any tips for listing?
I think that you cover all. Nothing that I can add right now. But wonderful presentation, Teresa. Wonderful.
All right, awesome. All right, guys. So thank you so much. If you didn't watch the first one, it is recorded on the YouTube channel. I'll post it in the chat so you guys can go back in there and watch it if you missed the first one. But it's all, you know, cohesive to this one. Okay. Let's go get some listings. Let's go prospect, pick up those phones, send those text messages, you know, and that has a lot to do with the 100 days and 100K, right? Emalis? That
Yep.
little messages.
Yeah,
I mean,
and remember, we just had good news. So use the energy from the good news on Friday this week. You get on the phone, people are receptive, people are curious, people want to know if the news is right or wrong. So take advantage of this week and pick up the phone, because we have the industry on our side this week. Whether it's really going to translate into an interest rate change, we don't know, and how soon, but take advantage of that, because people want to know, and you are the professional with the data and the information. So get calling.
Yep. Make those phone calls. All right, guys, I'll let you go. And thank you so much for staying a little late. And we will see you on our next journey. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, familia.
Bye.